So, the new Home Alone movie came out, Disney Plus exclusive. But before we get to that, let's remind ourselves of what came before. So, first off, the first two Home Alone movies, undoubtedly most people have seen them. It's about a kid named Kevin McAllister who faces off with two small-time bumbling crooks, Harry and Marv. The first time he's literally left home alone by accident, and he sets booby traps throughout his house. Second time, Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, he ends up by himself in the city, and he uses an old brownstone under construction to set more booby traps and foil their plans. Both of these are available in 4K. They've been newly remastered recently. The first one is available on 4K Blu-ray disc. If you want to look more into that, you can see my past video review of that Blu-ray. And these two movies have been available on Disney Plus, but recently they put the 4K versions on Disney Plus. They hadn't been available before. So yes, the second one is now available in 4K, just unfortunately not on disc. So it's not as good as a disc, but I mean it's good enough. But wait, before we go on to the third chapter, there's another movie that, by rights, I think it's a Home Alone movie. Do you know what it is? Baby's Day Out. This was made by John Hughes, who wrote the first two movies, and it has his fingerprints all over it. It's so much basically another Home Alone movie. The only difference being that the star is an infant, and he doesn't exactly set traps, but he basically leads a group of three bumbling criminals foiling their plans through traps of various sorts, whether it be at the zoo and throughout the city and culminating in a construction site. It's also got a lot of similar story beats, like one bad guy hitting another in an attempt to save him from something. And the original was a tarantula, and then in Baby's Day Out it was a fire. It's got similar story elements from Home Alone 2, such as the mother's conversation with a police officer, um, realizing where her child was at the end, and also even the actor who played the owner of Duncan's Toy Chest was now a veteran. And unless you're completely cynical, it's a fun movie, a funny movie. For one thing, the star of the movie, this baby, um, I don't know how they got as fortunate as they did to cast him, because he's just seemed like a joy to work with. He's always seems happy. Uh, they got some really good shots of him that fit with the action, the story they were trying to tell, and he's just adorable. Plus, you've got Joe Mantegna playing this bumbling crook in his pre-crime drama days. That scene with him trying to mask the pain as his lower regions are on fire when he's being confronted by a police officer. That's a good one. Plus, probably one of the funniest lines. We're going back to the TikTok to get the boo-boo. Yeah, you have to see it. So anyway, back to the official Home Alone series. It returned again in the late 90s with Home Alone 3. And this did not have the character of Kevin McAllister or any of the returning cast. It was a same concept, but a fresh story. It also didn't lean heavily into the Christmas aspect. Home Alone's 1 and 2 had a strong, that was strongly in the music and in the sentimentality. This didn't. It took place during Christmas, and I think Christmas was mentioned once in passing, like a landmark they were looking for, a house with a Christmas wreath on the door. But other than that, it wasn't a part of the film's identity. For these reasons, and also definitely familiarity with these characters that had appeared in the first two movies, maybe some don't like it for that reason. Uh, but honestly, I thought it was excellently done. In some ways, even better than the first two. It was a really clever plot, and also had some genuine excitement because it had bad guys who were not necessarily bumbling, at least not off the bat. They were involved in espionage, and they thought they were super cool. And I guess maybe that was their downfall. There was a lot of outside of the box stretching of this Home Alone concept in a good way. It wasn't just the traps at the end. It wasn't at night. It was in daytime this time. And there was multiple sequences that led up to that built the drama of the character. In this case, his name was Alex Pruitt, of this character not being believed. and his run-ins with his parents and the local police with regard to that. A really neat sequence, extended sequence with a remote control car and a camcorder. And even when it came to the ultimate battle plan at the end, it wasn't just one, it was actually two. There was two setup sequences and two executions. And if there were any elements of the story that you might think were unbelievable or a little far-fetched or wondering how one would link to the next, if you watch carefully and notice there's like lines or story elements introduced to link one to the other. For instance, it would be completely convoluted for the protagonist to just chance upon something that he needs to find, and that's done in movies. They just resort to that sometimes. For instance, this government chip that was hidden in a toy car. He could just chance upon it, but that realistically that does not make any sense. So what they did was that was part of the camcorder sequence that was strapped to the toy car. They had the bad guy steal the tape from the camcorder, and then the kid figures, if the tape is gone, why are they still chasing the car? There must be something else. So it was just little things like that that helped it to flow naturally, even if you don't realize it at first. And there's also some gravitas. Um, Alex, he's little, he's smaller than Kevin. He realizes that nobody's can help him, even the local police aren't going to help him. So that scene where he's saying goodbye to his mom and he gets a little chill, it's like, oh, you feel that, like he's definitely on his own now. He knows it and he has to go through with it. And later on, when the criminal is listening in to Alex talking to his mom on the phone, and Alex lies to her to keep her safe, uh, he has that little bit of, even though he's going to kill him, he has that little bit of respect for him, and he remarks, what a brave little fellow. So it's things like that that keep it, despite the high comedy and the slapstick, it keeps it grounded too and keeps you invested. So Home Alone 3, yeah, definitely underrated. As for Blu-ray, it was never released on Blu-ray. You can get the HD version on streaming services, including Disney Plus. Not 4K, not even remastered. It's HD, but it's not remastered, and it actually looks like it was from a used theatrical print. Damage to it, not much range to it, not the clearest, but it's better than the DVD, that's for sure. The original DVD was actually not even anamorphic widescreen, it was letterbox, so which made for even lower resolution. So yeah, that's the best you can get for now. So yeah, that was the John Hughes trilogy, or quadrilogy if you count Baby's Day Out. And that's that for that. Nope. We gotta do it. We gotta press on through 4, 5, and 6. It's not all bad. But let's get the worst one over with, which is the next one, 4. This was a made-for-TV movie. It was released as Home Alone 4, and it's still called that when you watch the movie itself. That's what it says in the opening title, Home Alone 4, that's it. But when it was released to DVD and streaming later on, they called it Home Alone, Taking Back the House. No number. They added that subtitle to it. Maybe to distance themselves from people who had actually seen it on TV. I don't know. This movie has a completely new cast, but it was actually an attempt to be a pilot for a Home Alone TV series. I don't know how that would have worked. But anyway, they used the same character names from the original 2 movies. You got Kevin and his older brother Buzz, and French Stewart plays Marv. Yeah, that's supposed to be Marv. Now this does lead to continuity problems because anybody who made this couldn't have been a fan of Home Alone. It had to been some corporate decision to monetize their intellectual property. And that being the case, they didn't even know their own timeline. So in the first movie, Kevin is 8. He says it explicitly. Same thing with the second movie, explicitly says that he's 10, 2 years later. In this movie, he says that he's 9. Does it take place in between? No, because Marv says that he's already seen him a couple times before and that he's not with Harry anymore. So, yeah, that throws the timeline way out of the loop. So it was mostly bad, but it wasn't all bad. There was Missy Pyle, who played Marv's wife. I thought they were kind of funny at times together, and there was a few little funny scenes here and there, but obviously it doesn't make up the bulk of this almost hour and a half movie. So to make it better, they could have at least just made these guys new characters and not have that continuity problems hanging over the whole thing. At least made a fresh little story, but even then, there wasn't a lot to work with. Low budget is not an excuse. You can make a great project with no budget practically, but there were not cinematic artists at the helm of this thing. That's an understatement. The editing was so tacky and downright clumsy at times. It would just like jarringly cut from one thing to the next. The acting was, even from, especially from the main characters of all people, the acting was sometimes painful. The traps towards the end, I mean, nowhere near as thought out as any other movie. It's like a string here, a model airplane there, a rope here. It was like the least amount of effort you can possibly put into that. And I know usually the action towards the end of these movies was cartoonish, but this was beyond cartoonish. It was more like a completely took you out of this illusion because of defying physics so much or the outright outlandishness of it. It was like something like maybe if a 6-year-old was having a pretend and making it up as they went. That's what it reminded me of at some points. But this was made by adults. You have to remind yourself of that. How? How? Plus, some of the things like Kevin's parents are getting divorced in this movie, or just about to. I don't care if I spoil it. You won't care either. Trust me. um, uh, it's like nothing. Dad takes up with this rich woman and starts living with her, and they're gonna get married. But then at the end, he decides, you know what? I'm gonna go back with my family. He just says it like it's gonna happen, and the wife is so grateful that he's coming back after all that. It's like completely glossed over, and it's ridiculous. It's so cringe. So anyway, moving on from that to Home Alone 5, they stopped using numbers by now, actually, so it's really called Home Alone: The Holiday Heist. This was made 10 years later. It was also made for TV, and then released on DVD shortly thereafter. Now, this was a definite improvement over Home Alone 4. That's not saying much, but I mean, it was still good. It was still a fun movie to watch. Completely new cast playing, completely new characters, new location. Kind of interesting plot, too. It wasn't regular run-of-the-mill burglars, per se, or espionage like the other one, like number 3, but this was a little more detailed plot about a family heirloom, a painting that was stolen by a bootlegger and was in this safe, well, actually a secret room within a safe hidden that was in the basement of this house that the family moved into. So yeah, it's a little bit of an elaborate story there, but that part of it was fun. And the kid is a little bit older this time. His name is Finn. And there was also a lot of cool outside of the box elements like that came into that would be more relevant when that was made, such as kids always being on devices at the time, smartphones, and in Finn's case, online gaming, and that was a big part of the plot. And that was also had some funny jokes and payoffs as well as a subplot of him learning to not be so wrapped up in this virtual world, but to get out in the real world. So the crooks in this one were the main guy who wanted to steal the painting, and also two lower level thieves that he hired to, in this case, actually agreed upon to split revenue from what they steal. And we'll just say things don't go as planned. It's not on Disney Plus, not on Blu-ray, DVD, or streaming. So yeah, a decent story, just not the best actors. I mean, they were good low to mid-level actors, but there's a little bit of overacting going on. And really, it's a similar thing with Home Alone 6. Well, really called Home Sweet Home Alone, the new movie. And this one is exclusively on Disney Plus. Again, this suffers from some questionable acting, some overacting, and honestly, I think the writing takes a step back from Home Alone 5. It takes a step back. just like moderately amusing at some points, and that's about it. One of the nice things about the original Home Alone movies was opening credits sequences set the stage for the movie, set the mood, and they're technically well done. And starting with 4, it was an abrupt stop to that, and it was like the cheapest possible opening title you could probably design ever. Uh, Chintzy music, like title flashes on the screen, awkward computer graphics that just, and then straight into the movie. No cinematic flair at all. I mean, I can understand that maybe for the Home Alones 4 and 5 because they have to edit them to a specific time for traditional broadcast TV. But with the new one, Home Sweet Home Alone, I mean, there's no real excuse because with Disney Plus, it can be any time, running time you want, whatever works artistically, and that's shown with things like The Mandalorian. They don't keep it to an exact time like you had to do back in the old days of broadcast TV. Whatever works for setting the mood, telling the story. Honestly, 4, 5, and 6 feel more like they were designed by someone who works with a catalog, like a Christmas catalog, or something on the Hallmark Channel, or a coffee commercial. It doesn't have that cinematic feeling or artistry to it. It's like a static preset that were applied to these last 3 movies. Home Alone 5 and 6 also suffered, just like 4, from the bad writing of the battle plans at the end. I mean, 4 was admittedly the chintziest. 5 and 6 are a little bit more elaborate, but not necessarily better. Like, again, going to that Christmas catalog vibe, 5 did traps that would like make them look like Christmas themed things. Like one guy had eggnog thrown on him, and then he turns around and walks out like, oh, I can't use this entrance because eggnog got splattered on me, so I will turn around and try to find another one. I mean, it made no logical sense, and like, oh, the girl was made to look like a reindeer, and the other guy was made to look like Santa Claus. It was pretty tacky and didn't have the practical value of the traps in the first few movies. And while Home Sweet Home Alone didn't necessarily go that specific route, it also wasn't much better. A lot of questionable choices at every turn, including, honestly, the choice just to make it at all. I mean, if they were going to make a Home Alone sequel or reboot, I'm not against such a thing. It could have been done well. I just think it should have been done with a proper budget, proper casting, higher skilled people to make the thing, just like the originals had skilled people. But they really just use this as content for Disney Plus to boost subscribers and to just to monetize and make it seem like their purchase of 20th Century Fox was worth it sooner. So yeah, but that's how you drive franchises into the ground, by using them like that. If I said it before, I'll say it again. Corporations trying to make art often leads to disaster. And despite throwing in certain triggers just because they could, like they went back to the John Williams music and used it a little here and there. They brought back the actor who played Buzz and had him be a local cop. It had nothing to do with the story at all. It was just like, hey, look, there's Buzz. Oh, callback. This is all in the same series. They even had something that made no sense. The family watching Angels with Filthy Souls remake set in outer space. That was the only difference. It was set in outer space, but the same lines were being said. So there's nothing really clever about it. It was just like, it's a callback with a nonsensical twist to it. And the person watching it says, I don't know why they're always trying to remake the classics. And that's obviously an attempt to be self-aware of this movie itself. But even that doesn't work. So yeah, maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. Tell me your opinions in the comment below. Subscribe, comment. Thanks. See you next time.